everyone, welcome to episode 9 of the Hawkins Do You Coffee podcast. My name is Lauren.
And my name is Emily, and in this podcast we talk about all things Stranger Things. And I still have not got a new way of saying that.
It's okay, you've coined that tone
I
of
feel like,
the phrase at this point.
Is there any point in changing it? Because I feel like it wouldn't sound right.
No, it works, it's fine. So this is actually the third month of the Hawkins Do You Coffee podcast. It is now September, which is slightly terrifying. It still feels like it's like March 300th or something like that.
I'm convinced that April, May, June and July just didn't exist this year. I don't understand.
No. So this month, obviously every month we start a new topic. So this month's topic is all about the bonus books, the comic books and the 3 full-size novels that we currently have as Stranger Things bonus content, which is very exciting. I was very happy about the bonus content, but that's because I am a bit of a sucker for bonus content in general. I'm always there for it. So
I mean, as soon as the Will comic was announced, are we at all surprised that I was literally like, I need this in my life?
Yeah, that was the one that I waited for and got each episode of, each one of the comics, whereas the other ones I waited until they were the full bind ups, and obviously I got the books when they first came out as well.
If anyone is actually listened to this and does have the Will comics and individually and has not done it yet, flip them round and line them up in the order of the issues. Obviously I don't think it's going to show it right because obviously it's a green screen, but if you are watching on YouTube, you can kind of see the background here, and if you line them up, it just all looks really nice, and this
is the type of bonus content that I like, if you had those comics and you read them and that was it, you could frame that, you can make a nice little upside down creepy Hawkins forest vibe.
I know, and it just looks, if you obviously aren't watching on YouTube, it all lines up to be as that creepy forest, and all the characters are there, and it's just, and I think
it's really cool.
Is it? Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah.
Anyway.
It's just it's cool. It's really cool. So as is now the tradition, we have a question of the week.
Yes.
What is that question this week, Emily?
Very fittingly, it's going to be, what is your favourite bonus content, essentially?
Well, my favourite bonus content, don't mean to brag, was Secret Cinema, which we were lucky enough to go to, and I will forever shout about how much I loved it. But
I really hate that I did not think of that as bonus content, even though it's the most bonus content I think you could have had.
The bonus content. But aside from Secret Cinema, which was absolutely iconic, I have got a bit of a soft spot for the Darkness on the Edge of Town novel, which is the book all about Hopper before moving back to Hawkins when he lived in Brooklyn.
So I mean, I really liked the Will comics.
Oh, really?
To be honest, all the comics, I've actually quite enjoyed, or what of them I've seen, stuff like that, I've really enjoyed those. I did, however, like Suspicious Minds. I feel like that's a controversial
no, it was good. I thought it was good.
I think I went into it kind of thinking I'll read it because it's bonus content, which I know sounds really silly and obvious, but I think I went into it like that, and actually by the end of it I could see myself figuring out things as I was going along.
Was I think the best thing about Suspicious Minds. I was going to say that was the best thing about Stranger Things then. That was the best thing about Suspicious Minds, is that it did have those clues that you could pick up along the way, which was really good. Obviously this month there is going to be a full episode dedicated to Suspicious Minds, so we will go into more detail about the Suspicious Minds book, and it gives you chance, if you haven't read it, to read it, and then you can come and listen or watch us wherever. And
I think it's one of those ones that if you like bonus content, then Suspicious Minds is good. But as we're saying, we will talk about Suspicious Minds properly another time.
So actually, if I if we let you guys know. So it'll be Suspicious Minds, Darkness on the Edge of Town, and Runaway Max. So those are the 3 novels. So if you haven't read the 3 novels and you do want to listen or watch the podcast and listen along with us and share your own theories, I think that's the order that we're doing it in.
Yeah, I think
so. That'll be the next 3 weeks. So if you want to read before we talk about each of those books, feel free to go and check them out, and then you can know what we're talking about and not get spoiled about the bonus content if you want to listen along. But this episode is all about the comics.
So officially there has been 4 comics released.
Yes.
Don't quote me on this order, but the Will comic was first. I believe that is called The Other Side, but I think it just seems to be known as the Will comics.
The comic about Will.
Yeah. Then it was 6. Then following on, I believe it was then Into the Fire, because they're kind of it's a sequel of 6.
Yeah.
And then I think Zombie Boys is the newest of those 4, but it might have slid in somewhere
between 6 and Into the Fire. I think Zombie Boys and Into the Fire came out so close to each other that I'm really not 100% sure on like the order of when they came out. But
I remember being on Reddit, and I think it was like, oh, this is happening now, this is happening, and it was, there's a few more in the works as well. So you've got I think it's called Science Camp, and it's to do with Dustin and Susie at Camp Nowhere. If you're going to watch on YouTube, Lauren has a Camp Nowhere t-shirt on.
I thought it was very fitting.
Yeah. And then you've also got the couple of freebies that come out. So you had one that centered around Mike, and then you've got one that centers around Erica, and she wants to like sell some Russian goo. And then you've also got the newest one that's been announced, actually, which is Stranger Things and D&D, like a crossover.
Very excited about that.
I'm really excited about that.
So exclusive, not actually an exclusive, but I got to see a very, very brief preview of that comic, and I am very excited about it.
I'm so jealous. Look, I'm so
very excited about it.
If you haven't seen the synopsis, it's essentially it's obviously pre-season 1, and it's kind of Will, Mike, and Lucas like meeting Dustin, and I presume they play D&D. I haven't seen.
I want to say there's D&D involved in the comic.
Maybe. Who knows? Just possibly. But should we start at the beginning then?
Yeah.
Go for the first one that came out, which is The Other Side, which is centered around definitely not my favorite character, Will Byers.
Yes. This one is Will in the Upside Down. So it's kind of what we didn't see in the show, because it's sort of his side of the conversations that Joyce was having with him with the light, and him trying to hide from the Demogorgon and try and find his way back to Hawkins, whereas most of what we saw was the people in Hawkins trying to get to Will.
What was interesting around this is that I remember when it first came out and I'd read it and I told a few people about it, that I always said to people, don't read it yet. Like, if you haven't seen season 1, because people were saying, what order should I do it? So much like, watch season 1, maybe watch season 2, and then go back and read the Will comics.
Yeah.
Because it just added this real new dimension that, I mean, why not? We're going to talk about it. Let's spoil the ending. So there's one shot.
I mean, I assume people know that that's what we're going into. So.
Yeah. So there's one shot at the end of issue 4. So there's 4 issues. And it's got the Mind Flayer kind of looking down on Will as he is being used as the breeding ground, so to speak. And it's quoting, should I stay or should I go? And the lyrics that So, and I think it's just one of those ones that it seems to read a lot more, I think, if you watch after season 2. And then it's also really interesting going back and watching a season 1, knowing the comics are there. Because, I mean, me personally, I know watching it, I was always trying to figure out where Will was at certain points, which sounds really strange. But like, I was always like, okay, so is he here at this point? Because there's a scene where Chester, the dog is called Chester, isn't it? I mean, he disappeared, but
they had a dog. What was this about?
I mean, I think
the internet most most conspiracy at this point. What happened to the biased dog? Maybe we should do a whole podcast on where that dog went.
I mean, we should have done it in character series.
We should have. Where's the dog?
There's a shot where I think the dog's sitting in Castle Byers. So I was like, oh my gosh, is Will there at that point? And it was really interesting then to go back, having read the comics, be like, oh my god, okay, so Will was here at this point, and then he's here, and he's here, and it's it added. It's the one for me personally comic that was really added something for me.
Yeah, I think a lot of that is that the effects that it has, knowing what happens in the show, is really good. And I think that a lot of the comic panels are really good because they do have those parallels to the show. And obviously in 6 and Into the Fire, it doesn't play on scenes from the show necessarily. It plays on scenes from the comics. So that show connection, whilst it is there, because especially like Into the Fire, because Callie is in Into the Fire for a little bit, it doesn't have that same connection and that same meaning as the Will comics did do, because they just gave us that entirely, pardon the pun, new dimension to the show that we knew, and this whole sort of extra level, which I think that's why I really liked it as well. I think that there was just so much more to it, which just added this whole new thing. So yeah, that was a good thing about it.
It was also interesting as well, that reading it, because it seemed to so obviously Jodie, I don't want to say the name wrong, Hauser,
Jodie Hauser,
Jodie Hauser. She's obviously had to have conversations with Netflix. I presume the Duffers had to be involved somewhere, especially when they weren't allowed to use the number 1, which we've talked about a lot.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming there's been some conversations there, but there are a few moments in it that really change what we thought we knew about how, for example, how Will got to the Upside Down. So I think in issue 1, when he's sitting in the shed, we presume the Demogorgon is within the show, coming up to him and takes him there. But within the comic, it seems to suggest that the Demogorgon is actually outside, and somehow Will's almost transported himself in a way.
And there's actually a couple of scenes in the comics where it suggests that Will has used powers that he doesn't know he has, which is really interesting. And a theory that I've had for a really long time is that Will has more ability than he's aware that he has. For those not watching, Emily is rubbing her fingers together very excitedly about this whole situation.